Hello, and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the Algebra 1 concept of domain and range of exponential functions. This is standard A.9A in the great state of Texas, and we are using item number 23 of the 2018 released STAAR test. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and take a moment to pause the video, work this problem out on your own, unpause it, and we will look at our answers together. So we have an exponential function graph here, but it's just the part of it here. And so exponential functions, right, we're usually talking about something that looks like this. Y equals a times b to the x power. And so we need to find the domain. All right, well, unfortunately, the domain and the range are not defined for us anywhere on our mathematics chart. So we need to know what these two definitions are going into the STAAR test. So let's review that, and we'll find the domain. All right, so the domain is the set of all possible independent variable values. And so when we're talking about our independent variable values, these are the values that we start with when we're trying to complete an equation. We start with the x, we do something to it, and we end up with a y. So our independent variable values is what we're starting with. Those are our x values. If we want to kind of make it a shorthand, we would say, okay, those are our x values. So our range, then, if the x is going to be the set of all independent variable values, the range is the set of all possible dependent variable values. And our shorthand for this is a little bit more complicated. So we can say, sure, those are the y values. And in this case, right, we have a very basic graph, x and y. But sometimes when we get a function, we're going to get, instead of the y, we're going to get f of x, g of x, h of x, anything of x, to show that it's a function. So in shorthand, we can say the range is the y values, but sometimes it's not just the y. So that's why we call it our dependent variable values. All right, so how would we find the domain in the range of this particular graph? Well, the domain is the x values. So the domain goes like this, side to side. So we're just looking at where it starts. So it looks like it starts right there at -1. And it goes right here at 3. All right, so I'm just looking at my x values here. I'm not looking at the y values. And what we need to notice is we've got closed circles for each of those. So the closed circle means I'm going to include that number, the -1 or the 3, in the domain. So if it were an open circle, I would not include it. So that means the difference between closed circle means we're going to do, a greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to. If it were an open circle, it would be like this. It would just be a greater than or a less than. We're not going to include it, but we are going to include it. So we can say here, and since we've got both bounds here, we're actually going to put x in the middle. And we're going to say x is, starting over here, greater than or equal to -1, right? Because it starts with -1 and it moves this way. But we actually do it this way. And just because we want that x to be in the middle. But if you were to flip it, right, it would be x is greater than or equal to -1. So it is pointing the correct way, but we want it to be in the middle, so it kind of looks opposite of what we're used to. Because now we can say x is also less than or equal to 3. So it kind of looks like this. So x is greater than or equal to 1, less than or equal to 3. So I see that right here. And I see, look at the difference between a and b. They just put the wrong variable in there, right? So it's the same thing, but they put the y right there, so we want the x. And then our range here, right, is going to be y is greater than or equal to, looks like it's going to be that 5.3. And then less than or equal to, that looks like 27. Because remember, the range is going up and down. And they've got that right there, and then they got two versions of that, but that's the range. We're looking for A, the domain.